fiddle players of Nashville came on stage and played with Spinal Tap when we went through there. And I don't want to mention his name because the story is a little amusing, but somebody on our crew heard him. He's standing backstage waiting to go on, and he asked the nearest person, tell me again, what kind of music is it these boys play?
Harry Shearer, man, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, you have to say considering at this time, but fortunately, my wife and I are well. Our friends in New Orleans are good. Our friends in London are good. Our friends here in LA are good. So we feel very lucky and grateful. And we're getting a lot. My wife and I were both talking the other day. We're getting a lot of work.
Your wife's also like a really incredibly talented musician. How has this impacted like what she does on a day-to-day basis?
Well, touring is off for the time being. She had tours planned, so she won't be doing that traveling and seeing people face to face. But she's seeing people virtually through this thing called a cappella, where she's able to work with her band remotely, and they sync up together, and so they perform for people, and a lot more people are seeing them that way than the other way. And she's also doing a few comedy pieces, which will be coming out soon. And I'm showcasing a YouTube channel, so people like me who would normally be in New Orleans and walking from club to club each night to hear that music can hear it while we're away, and people can be introduced to it who haven't heard it before.
Yeah, actually, the local paper picked it up and did a nice story on the pianist that was playing some tunes for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's 2 or 3 already, and we're adding more. And then the local radio station in New Orleans is doing this is jazz festival time in New Orleans, and it's not happening. And so they're doing a virtual one where they're going to the archives and retrieving some amazing performances that have been recorded at Jazz Fest over the years. And this weekend and next weekend doing that. So, life is all right, comparatively,
Yeah, music is very, it's so important to my life. I help put on music festivals across Kentucky, and it's like this is a very, very painful moment, because a lot of us are asking ourselves the question, will we ever get back to that point where we can have a mass gathering and listen to music and feel our feet in the sand and just kick back with a little something,
A little something.
Something.
Do you do bluegrass festivals?
So I co-created a festival called Bourbon and Beyond, and in years past we featured ZZ Top, Robert Plant, John Mayer, Lenny Kravitz, Steve Miller Band, Stevie Nicks, and we do have a bluegrass. Stage. Last year we had Green Sky Bluegrass, who's like this incredible band. I love. There was a band called Steel Wheels that really incredible vocals that we've had in the past. So we've had a lot of great bluegrass musicians, but probably none better. What's that?
I say I happen to be a big bluegrass fan, so that's why I asked. Knowing that Kentucky is bluegrass country.
That's right. Last year I had the opportunity to meet Dale McCoury, and that was like, for a lot of people, you're like, they would like to meet Michael Jordan or Elvis. For me, meeting Dale was like one of those moments. He was just so talented. I mean, he played with Bill Monroe.
Yeah, I know. We had, one of the great fiddle players of Nashville came on stage and played with Spinal Tap when we went through there. And I don't want to mention his name because the story is a little amusing, but somebody on our crew heard him. He's standing backstage waiting to go on, and he asks the nearest person, "Tell me again, what kind of music is it these boys play?" But God love him, he came out and kicked ass.
That's awesome. I've always thought like death metal needed a fiddle player, like a death, some kind of like.
We also had Bela Fleck come out and play with us when we played the Ryman. That was pretty amazing.
Well, I know we have. I sent you a couple of Malbecs. I was not able to get the same ones as you. I sent you a Cowor. I got the Alamos Malbec that is from Argentina. And I've been to both of these wineries. Wow. And Cahors is like it's in Bordeaux. It's one of the most beautiful areas of Bordeaux. It's really dry there. It's really hot, and so the Malbec grape does really, really well in Bordeaux. But of course, Malbec is known for its time in Argentina. And they really kind of like created their own like style and everything. And I thought tonight we could taste like a nice available Argentinian Malbec called Alamos. It's made by the Catena family. And you are pull up the French bottle I sent you there. Oh yeah,
this is
Haute-Sierra.
Haute-Sierra, yeah.
Yeah. And I got Le Creuson. Probably going to be very, very similar in style, but in both sides they call them black wine, because the Malbec is so dark.
Yeah, it sure is. The French one is 2014, and the Argentinian one is 2018.
Yeah, we have the same one on the Argentinian. Mine does not have a stated year. So 2017 for the Cahors one.
Yeah.
So for those listening, I tried to get Harry some wine. Unfortunately, what happened was nobody could get to their warehouses. Everybody was like closed. So I bought these from a liquor store near him and had them delivered. And then when I went to buy them in Kentucky, which is where I live, they only had there was only one store that even had a bottle of Cahors Malbec. So that was a little frightening that my area needs to pick up their Malbec drinking. So of all the characters you play or voice, who's the wine drinker of the bunch?
That's such a good question. I don't know. I mean, clearly not Flanders. We know that. The only wine he tastes is no, he doesn't. He doesn't taste ceremonial wine. Not in his neck of the woods. So I'm trying to think if any of them. Burns is too cheap to drink good wine, and maybe a glass under the news desk for old Kent Brockman, on nights when it gets really hard out there.
I could see Kent Brockman, being, but I would think he'd be more of a whiskey drinker though, because he's, he needs that quick fix.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe Kang. If there's good wine on Mars, Kang would be a drink.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm stumped.
Well, let's maybe it'll hit you in as we get to tasting. How about we start with where Cahors, where this grape really begins in Cahors. Now, one of the interesting things about this wine is that King Henry III in 1225 put a particular tax on what he called the black wine of Cahors. So that's one of the areas where it kind of gets that name black wine. But if you take a look how dark that is. That's from the grape. just incredibly dark.
Yeah, it is indeed. It'd scare the hell out of me if I were back in 1215.
You know what they did to you back then? You know, if you didn't pay your taxes, I mean, you got.
They made you drink this. Mm.
Yeah, very, very fleshy. I love the kind of like earthiness that I'm getting out of my side.
Yeah. You know, I opened these about 2 hours ago, so to give them a chance to.
Oh, nice.
Get some oxygen, you know. It's lovely. I have to say, I'm only a very occasional Malbec drinker, so this will be interesting for me.
Oh, what do you normally drink?
I normally drink either Italian reds or French Burgundies in the red department. As you may have been told by my people, I can't drink California because there's something in there that's I've developed an allergy to. I started out in life drinking California wine, and then after about 15 years, my body just went, no, basta. And people argue all the time about it, whether that's possible. And my favorite story about that is I got a fan email once from a guy at a California winery, which I will not name. And he said, I'd like to send you a case of our wine. I said, thank you very much, but I can't drink it. And his reply was, and I remember these words verbatim, oh, yeah, we kind of put a witch's brew in there.
You know, what I have learned about when anyone has like any kind of adverse reaction to a food or a drink, it's like a lot of people's automatic response is to question that. Like, you know, like people with like legitimate like celiac disease or any kind of gluten allergy, I mean, they get vilified, and I just don't think that's right. So I feel you. I understand I know exactly the mentality people have are like, oh, no, you just need to try our wine. Our wine's going to get you. It's going to get you over that hump.
And, you know, poor me. I only have Chilean, Argentinian, Australian, Italian, French, Oregon, Washington wines to tide me over, you know, this horrible event. So I'm okay.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
And let's see what you think of it.
Wow. I was expecting this to be a bit drier than it is. It reminds me of nothing so much as, do you know the Italian wine Aglianico? It's a little reminiscent of that. It's like because it's fairly light-bodied, but it sort of has the flavor profile that's reminiscent of an Aglianico, which is one of my favorites.
Now mine, which is the La Cruzion, I kind of wish I had a sip of yours. This one's falling a little flat for me. It's not.
Really?
Yeah, it's like the nose is beautiful, but the nose is full of like cherries and dark fruits and earth. Then I get it on the palate, and it's like it's sweet, and I'm not in Malbec. To me shouldn't be like overly sweet, you know?
Yeah, this is a bit on that side as well, and that's what I meant. I was expecting it to be drier, but Aglianico in Italy is a little bit on that side as well. So maybe these are fairly closely related wines.
It might be. I feel like maybe it needed another year in the bottle. Maybe I opened this too early. But I know. So when you are like preparing, you know, for a character, do you have a routine Is there something that you like to sip before you record or go on stage?
You know, I do not normally. Let me put it this way. In my youth, I was with a comedy group, and we used to do gigs every night. And Thursday nights, this is how stupidly disciplined we were. Thursday nights, we allowed ourselves to get smoke a little weed before going on stage. That was our night to, okay, let's see what we can find tonight. And because our stuff was written, we didn't improvise. So that was the night to kind of, okay, let's give ourselves a little roaming room, have a little weed and see what we discover. And we found, you know, great new pieces of material for the existing sketches. So it was a fun thing. But since that time, I don't. The only thing that's part of my routine, and I learned it from my wife along with the vocal exercises. She taught me that her father, who was an opera singer, had taught her, is this concoction combining organic apple cider vinegar, honey, and hot water. It's a little bit of apple cider vinegar, a little bit of honey, and a cupful of hot water. And it's just great, strips the crap off your vocal cords, and makes feel brand new if you've had any overuse of them or used them in the wrong way, or they're tired. So that's the only thing. Otherwise, I do it straight, man.
Yeah. Huh? Well, you've had an amazing career, and your start in radio, or at least your early part of your career in radio, like you were kind of like there in the late 70s, early 80s, when, you know, radio was kind of on its way out in some ways for people to go for comedy. Like Bob and Ray they were on their, you know, they were probably had a few years left in them, but, you know, that was such a great medium for comedy, and I almost feel like it's making a comeback. You know, like there's a lot of cool comedy going on radio right now.
Well, I've been doing my show for 36 years, so I came from that earlier era and just kept doing it because I love having to write and create new characters or do new characters as people come into the news and leave the news. And radio is such an erg-friendly medium in terms of how much energy and how much effort it takes to create something in people's minds, as opposed to television, where you need a crew of 50. Although now they're going to discover that you need a crew of 2, thanks to, you know, people being on television from their homes. But, you know, it's just so efficient and gets into the imagination in such a wonderful way. You mentioned two people that, you know, basically helped me grow up. It was Bob and Ray. They were a part of my childhood every day and inspired me in so many ways. And when I was 18, speaking of alcoholic beverages, went to New York for a summer to work in an ad agency. And one of the clients that I was assigned to was a local New York beer called Peel's Beer, Piels. And I learned my first real lesson about advertising when I asked my supervisor, I don't drink beer, I still don't. Tell me about it. He said, it tastes like horse piss. You don't need to know any more than that. But the 2 spokespeople for Peel's Beer were these 2 animated characters, Harry and Bert Peel, who supposedly owned the brewery, voiced by Bob and Ray. And so at 18 years old, I had written and got to produce a session with Bob and Ray reading my material. And I thought, it isn't going to get better than this.
That is amazing. And I listened to Bob and Ray. I bought all of their CDs. I know all their skits. I often find myself saying that this YouTube show and podcast is brought to you by Einbinder Flypaper. And I had the privilege of meeting Bob Elliott before he had passed away, and I wrote a story on him. And so I went to his cottage in Maine. Chris was there too. Did you ever work with his son, Chris?
each other a little bit, but we've never worked together, unfortunately. I'm watching him in Schitt's Creek now and just howling with laughter.
He's very talented. Chris was there, and this was I think this was 2007, 2008. I go into Bob's home, his cottage, and I don't think the man had thrown a single thing away in probably 25 years. But it was he was very well organized though, and he still didn't own a computer. He typed all of his letters on a typewriter, and he still had like this old like cord phone, and he was just an amazing man. But what a cool story.
They were so brilliant, and something that really spoke to me in a way that lasted through my adult life was through 4 decades, really.
The Fred
and their stuff still sounds good. I play it for my child when we have long drives. So what a wonderful opportunity for us to share some Bob and Ray stories.
The Miracle of Gas Refrigeration, does that ring a bell?
Was that the one where he was with the Consumer Reports and he was talking?
No, it was Mr. Science explaining the miracle of gas refrigeration.
That sounds right. Of course, there's also the world's largest living lizard.
That wasn't Smelly Dave, was it?
What's that?
That wasn't Smelly Dave, was it? Or
no, that was
another.
No, that was
the whale. It was the whale they were carting around one year.
Yeah.
Smelly Dave.
And of course the Garish Summit soap opera, where the guy kept trying to squeeze money out of his mom, and it was just for anybody who's listening to this or watching this, just take a moment of your time and Google Bob and Ray. You can find their stuff out there. You can buy the CDs, but just a skit that's just timeless and funny, and they don't use any curse words or anything like that. It's a lot like, in some ways, the humor is not too different from what you present on the Simpsons, in that it's not racy. But I guess when you guys first came out, it was considered racy. But
there was we had very little interference from the network, but a solid limit on the number of times the word ass could be used in a half hour.
And it's funny, you look at something like South Park, where they just they push the limits for as far as they possibly can.
Yeah, but the difference is South Park is cable,
right,
and they're not regulated by the FCC, so it's a different universe.
Absolutely. Well, shall we go to our next wine?
Yeah, well, we have the same one.
That's right, for the first time.
Clean glass, as I used to say in Real Right Stuff. Not nearly as powerful a nose as the other one, right?
No. Not for mine anyway. Yeah, this smells much, I guess. It smells fresher, more like less fermentation or something. And we are tasting the Alamos 2018.
You remembered the Alamos. Thank you.
Cheers.
That's what a little Malbec would do. Cheers. Oh my. Yeah.
Yeah, I dig that.
Yeah. That has just a little at the top of what the other one was so dominated by, that little ping of freshness that turns into sweetness in the other wine. Oh, yeah. That's what I recognize as a Malbec, much more.
I really dig that.
Yeah. I may have this with dinner tonight.
Oh, nice. What is for dinner?
Well, it was going to be calf's liver and onions, and then there was a little accident at the butcher's, and so I think we're going to have duck confit.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
We already had dinner.
Yeah.
We had a nice tenderloin, and then the 1-year-old went crazy, and I don't think I got to enjoy it. I more or less inhaled it at that point.
Are you in something like cattle country where you are?
Yeah, we have a lot of really nice grass-fed cattle around us. Okay. There's a farm here called Fox Hollow Farm that is, they have incredible beef. This, however, came from Costco, which was good.
I'm not a Costco member, but I hear good things about it, at least in the wine area.
I think that wine, yes, you get a lot. They have a lot of incredible value. They're the number one retailer for all of wine and spirits in the country. So
yeah, I know.
But I feel like you go to Costco, you don't go there. You can't just like get one thing. You have to get, say you want a 6-pack of hot dogs or something. You have to get 36 of them, and so you walk out and it's just too much.
Well, that's a good place to go right before the pandemic strikes.
Yeah, that is true, because you can't just get 4 rolls of toilet paper. You get like 120.
Which reminds me, the one thing I never heard anybody say during the whole toilet paper frenzy was, "What's the matter with Kleenex?"
Right. Although I think that was people's like secret weapon, because Kleenexes were sold out too.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then here, about that. And then here in Louisville, people were using disposable wipes, and it was like backing up the system. And
of course.
Yeah, that didn't work out so well. So
no, I wouldn't. That'd be bad for the pipes.
Yes, it would be. Now, this is a direction I didn't think we would take the interview, is talking about sewage systems.
Yeah, well, that's where I go.
That's where Harry Sherry goes, everybody. Right straight to the septic.
That's where this Malbec took me. I'm not going to blame me. I'm going to blame the Malbec.
So talk about like a little bit more about like this your YouTube channel right now, because I did check it out, and it's really, really cool that you're able to bring musicians to the world through this. So talk a little bit about that, about like your inspiration there and what's going on.
My main home is New Orleans, and we live in the French Quarter, so it is very easy to have a lovely meal and then walk a few blocks and hear great music for pathetically cheap prices. I mean, the $10 bill and a drink, and I say pathetically, I mean because it's so cheap, it's so affordable, and I feel the musicians deserve more, as do they. But being not there, I wanted to recapitulate that experience selfishly for myself, and then for other people as well who may not be able to go there or may never have been there, because it is a musical. I mean, the New Orleans culture generally is just a culture unlike anything else in the United States. It's part Caribbean, part African, part European, and part French particularly, but with some German thrown in as well. And it's probably the hardest place in the world that I can imagine having to self-isolate in. I mean, I'm in Los Angeles right now, which I call with only a hint of amusement, the world capital of self-isolation, because it seems like whenever I come here, I don't go see friends, because it's, who wants to be in the car for an hour and be really angry at the traffic when you get to see a friend, you know? Whereas in New Orleans, it's you're not on top of each other, but it's really, everything's really close, and so you see people, and life is lived in the streets and in the restaurants and in the clubs, even though people have lovely homes as well. It's not like New York, where you have to live outside because you have 400 square feet and no windows in your home. Mm-hmm. It is culture that drives people out. I mean, I'm a homebody by nature, and when I'm down there, I know that every time I leave the house, I will be rewarded by something strange or funny or wonderful. And so the idea of closing all that down is remarkable. And so far, I check in with my friends all the time, but it's a remarkably wrenching change from the and the music is basically part of that. And so I wanted to share at least that much with people. I'm friends with a lot of these guys, players, and so I just said, look, do like a set, do like whatever you, or don't do more than half an hour, because we want people to want more, and do whatever you want. And I pay them like they're playing a club gig, and they own the material, they own the videos, and if they want them to if they want them to take it down, I'll take them down. But otherwise, they're up there. So there's now 7. And the 8th one is going up shortly, and we're adding new players all the time, as we have something to show the other guys, to say, look, here's what it looks like. And the response has been great. I mean, people, I think, value discovering people that they may not have known, or people that are playing music that they may not have even heard. But it's all solo piano so far, because we don't want to have to get a mixer and an engineer. They're self-isolating. They're at home with their piano. And the great thing about a piano is it's an orchestra in itself, so it's fully self-sufficient. Yeah. So and it's called Piano New Orleans. It's a playlist on the Harry Shearer channel on YouTube. And then there's other stuff there, like beginning to show some highlights of the Derek Small's concert in LA called Lukewarm Water Live, with a huge number of amazing rock and roll players as guests, and then some other stuff that I'm playing around with from time to time.
That's awesome. Now do you play? You play a little play a little cello, right? Bass. You play bass.
I play bass. I play bass. I do play bass, and I'm getting okay at it. It's one of those things. As you go through the years, it's nice to have something that you can keep getting better at, because aging is supposed to be a time when things go away, and to have something in your grasp that gets better with time is like a real treat.
Now, you had a musical set where it was, I guess, a bit of a comedy as well. Do you with your music, are you portraying comedy, or are you bringing in the real vibes?
Oh, I don't know how to answer. You mean in what? In what I'm doing now, or obviously Spinal Tap was a satirical look at a particular kind of music, and we all agreed that the music had to be believable. It had to be believable that this band could have existed this long. So there had to be a certain amount of credibility to it musically, and then the mistakes were lyrical mistakes rather than musical mistakes. And the same with A Mighty Wind, same kind of concept. And what I'm doing now is, I have this radio show, and I've been doing songs in the voice of Donald Trump for the last few years, and I'm I've assembled them into this record that I'm making. And again, I choose musical styles in which to place these songs that, in my mind, would be musical styles that are familiar to Donald Trump. What he grew up with or what he liked in the 80s, when his musical taste was forming. So I'm trying to be musically accurate to what I think his musical world might be in this work. So it's always, musically, I'm trying to make the music as right as possible.
I guess I guess a better way for me to have phrased that was, is there a different mindset for, playing this Donald Trump moment or the Spinal Tap moment? Is there a different mindset for when you are playing for you? Do you play differently? Do you feel differently? When you're playing.
You play differently, obviously, depending on the style of music. I mean, Derek's playing in Spinal Tap is very different than my characters playing in the Folksman, most obviously because they're different instruments. The Folksman is an upright bass player, and Derek is a 5-string electric player, and those are totally different techniques. But even so, even if you stick to the electric, playing in the mode of Derek is a very distinct kind of character choice as to how to play the bass. And like when my wife Judith, who's a wonderful singer and songwriter, asked me to play with her, I'm playing in a style that's totally different. That's much more appropriate to how she insists on hearing it. I don't have a personal style. I'm enough of a mimic to be able to adopt the style that's appropriate to the occasion.
Got it. Well, I went back to the Cahors wine. Mine, I feel like just opened up a little bit, the time of being opened, a little bit more oxygen to it.
Oh yeah, definitely not nearly as sweetish.
Yeah, it's much more dry for me. But I still
mine had been open for 2 hours, as I told you.
Yeah.
So crazy that it would.
But I still think I'm picking the Argentinian Malbec.
Absolutely. I mean, the way that the French one has changed is, yes, less sweet, but not more pleasant, not more accommodating, it seems to me, to food, which is the way I drink wine.
Yeah.
I very rarely drink wine without food. So I'm always looking at wine in terms of,
Well, I think you have, when you brought a calf liver, I immediately was like, oh, that sounds good. I'd love a pate. You're doing a duck confit. This would go very nicely with a duck confit. That sounds delicious. So
I try, I do the cooking in the house, and I have this wall full of cookbooks, and I always would say to myself, because I learned my basic 30 recipes, that's my repertoire, and I'd always said to myself, boy, when I get the time, I'm going to crack open these books and learn some new stuff. And now I have been called, and so I'm starting. I did a famous garlic soup from a restaurant in New Orleans last night, and I don't normally make a lot of soups, but the same restaurant has a really killer celery soup that I made last week. So I'm going through the soup department right now.
By the way, I visit New Orleans 3 or 4 times a year, and I think I come back 5 pounds heavier every time. So, but
well,
it's
I'm a basketball player, so I deal with it. I run it off. But yeah, I mean it's amazing food, and if I could do with YouTube for restaurants what I'm doing for musicians, I would be enormously grateful because I can't put their food up on YouTube and pay them for it. I've helped out in other ways, some of them, but fingers crossed that survives, because it's a huge part not only of the eating scene, but in New Orleans, as in France, so much of the social métier is built around eating together, and eating together happens outside the house.
So I did a James Beard benefit where we did myself and some other bourbon tasters. We picked a barrel online, and the money went to James Beard. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done virtually to help restaurants. A good friend of mine, Chef Edward Lee, he's on the Mind of a Chef, Top Chef, and he's got a thing going called the Lee Initiative. So there's a lot of ways that you could do there. But you're right. Like, how can you get someone to how can you get them to cook if they I guess you could have them set up a phone while they chop ingredients and cook and all that, but it's just not that sexy as it is on Food Network. So, well, I think that might be our cue. That might be our cue. I don't want to keep you.
It's time to feed the animals. That's what's going on. The carnival is eating of the animals. But it would be, there is among the great places in New Orleans, there is a gelateria that is the most kick-ass gelato this side of Florence, and I've offered to advance order a bunch of gelato for future delivery, and they're thinking about it, but that seems one way to do it. But it is, as I say, because it's so, life is lived in the streets and in restaurants so much in that town. It's really crucial that, and the fact is that when you say that in other cities, it may suggest a certain level of expenditure or a certain level of fanciness or hoity-toityness. But the thing about New Orleans is there's great food at every price point. And whether there's a tablecloth or not, whether there's decor or lack thereof, the city is so devoted to the pleasure of eating. And I remember I toured around the country with my documentary about the New Orleans flood a few years back, and my assistant arranged some touring, and I realized in New Orleans the food always passes the closed eye test. The flavor profile is such you always know what you're eating even if you're not looking at it. And a lot of cities, the nice restaurants don't pass that test. It's great ingredients, but somehow you close your eyes and not quite sure, couldn't be sure what that is. So it's memorable in so many ways. This is great. I am going to have this with the duck confit. Thank you for this.
You bet, absolutely. Well, Harry, it's great. It was great spending some time with you. I know this won't be the last time. I hope to actually be able to toast you in person one day when we get through all this. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. And in the meantime, let us toast Bob and Ray.
Bob and Ray, yes. Oh, God. Love them.
Cheers.
Cheers, my friend.
Thanks for your thumbs.
The Fred Minnick Show is brought to you by The Beeline. Visit yoursippingpoint.com, by Michter's American Whiskies, and by Rack House Whiskey Club. Every whiskey tells a story. Find a bottle near you at 291coloradowhiskey.com. Write it like you stole it, drink it like you own it, live fast, drink responsibly.